Shindig on the road. Call the meeting to order and welcome everybody that's in the room and those that are watching on the YouTube channel to the Lebanon Virtual Planning Commission meeting. We have two public hearings scheduled tonight, but before we get into those, I'm going to have Kelly call the roll, please.
Yes, sir. Chairman Salvage is excused this evening. Vice Chair Robertson?
Here.
Commissioner McLean?
Here.
Commissioner Prenova?
Here.
Commissioner Galka?
Here.
Commissioner Port?
Here.
And Commissioner Bracken?
Here.
Okay, thank you. I assume everybody's had a chance to review the minutes from December 16th of 2020. Is there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, then the minutes will stand approved as presented. We come to the point in our agenda where if there is anybody with us, and I doubt that there is, but has any comments on items that are not on tonight's agenda, this is the time to speak forward. Okay, seeing none, then we will move on. Like I mentioned earlier, we have two public hearings, but before we get into those, I'm going to turn them over to Trey to go over some legal stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, today's hearings will be covered by the quasi-judicial hearing procedure set forth in Oregon law, specifically 197.7. Ask all commission members to announce any ex parte contact or conflicts of interest. We have gone over that before. If you have any questions as to what is an ex parte contact or what is a conflict of interest, please feel free to ask me either now or before any meeting. We'll start out with the staff report, which will be presented by staff. It should include information staff believes is relevant to the identified criteria from the city's comprehensive plan or land use regulations, which staff believes to be relevant to the issues of the hearing. Allow questions of the staff by by the commission. We will then open it up to public testimony. The audience may provide oral or written testimony concerning all issues relevant to the hearing. Please note that failure to raise an issue, including constitutional issues or other issues related to the proposed condition of approval, if any, accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the commission and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue, will preclude an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals. We'll go in the order. We will start with the proponent of the application. We will then have anybody else that wants to testify in favor of the application. We will then have the opponents of the application. And we will have rebuttal, if any, by the applicant as they carry the burden of proof. We will then close the public hearing and all discussion will be among staff and commission. Usually a decision is made tonight. There are other alternatives and we'll go over those in the event it's necessary. At this point, Mr. Chairman, you may ask if there are any commission members that have a conflict of interest or a bias or ex parte contact that they need to disclose.
Okay, thank you. So then referring to the first application, Annexation Planning File A-20-08, is there any ex parte contact, conflict of interest, or bias among the planning commissioners? Seeing none, then we'll turn it over to staff for staff report.
Thank you, sir. So before you tonight is a proposed annexation for a 4.96 acre property on Hansard Avenue. The property has approximately 330 feet of frontage along Hansard, and the full frontage of Hansard Avenue plus the portion of frontage to the south of it adjacent to the neighboring property would be annexed as part of this application. The properties to the north, south, and east are within city limits, and so therefore the site is contiguous and eligible for annexation. The property is generally within a developed neighborhood with a mix of industrial, agriculture, residential, and public uses. To the north and to the west are vacant parcels within city limits that are industrial. To the south is a property that's improved with a parking lot, and it was recently approved for the construction of a commercial building, including office use and warehousing for the Oregon Veterans Home. And to the east is the Veterans Home, which is located in the mixed use zone. The subject property is improved with an existing single-family residence, along with some additional accessory buildings. There is city sewer, water, and storm drainage available along Hansard Avenue's property frontage, and upon annexation, the applicant would be able to connect to the city's utility services to the site. The staff report does provide a detailed analysis of the required criteria and recommended findings for the proposed annexation. And generally speaking, the criteria can be met as the property is contiguous and eligible for annexation. The applicant is accepting of the first zoning, which is industrial, and therefore the site use and future development is consistent with the established zone and able to be accommodated with the existing city facility master plans. So with that, I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen and finish my conclude my report and answer any questions you might have.
Does anybody have any questions for Kelly? Okay, seeing none, then we will open the public testimony portion of our hearing and invite the applicant or the applicant's representative to come forward, state your name and your address, please. Go ahead.
Good evening, Planning Commission. John Christensen with AKS Engineering. I'm the applicant's representative. My address is 12965 Southwest Herman Road, Suite 100, Tualatin, Oregon, 97006. I'd like to thank staff for her efforts in preparing the staff report. We're supportive of her recommendation to approve the annexation, and we have no additional comments. We're here to answer any questions Planning Commission may have. And really, I guess that's all from the applicant's side.
Okay, thank you. Did we get any comments, mail or email, Kelly?
No, sir, nor did we have any public requests to participate in the meeting for this application.
Okay, thank you. Then hearing that, is there anybody online here that wishes to speak in favor of the application? Seeing nobody, anybody wish to speak in opposition of the application? Hearing nobody, then we will close the public testimony portion. All further discussion will be amongst the planning commissioners and staff. So this appears to be about as straightforward as they come. Anybody have any concerns with the application?
Not here.
Okay. Does everybody feel that the criteria has been met in the application? Okay, see heads nodding accordingly. Okay, anybody prepared to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the annexation A-20-08 to the City Council based on the written findings in the staff report, and direct staff to draft and order a recommendation incorporating the findings and conditions of approval.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, thank you, Joshua. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed to the application, say nay. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you for your time. Okay, we will move on to our second public hearing, Planning File S-20-02, subdivision request, and ask if there is any ex parte contact, conflict of interest, or bias that needs to be disclosed. Seeing none, then we will turn it over to staff for staff report.
Thank you again. So before you tonight is a proposed subdivision of a 4.7 acre parcel on the west side of River Road, north of the water treatment plant. In 2018, the Planning Commission approved a subdivision of the property to the north in this area here for a single-family subdivision, and this application would connect to that through the extension of the street network as proposed in this application form. The subject property is in the residential mixed density zone and in a generally developed neighborhood. To the north, east, and west are residential uses in the city and in the county, and to the south is the city's water treatment plant. The proposal is to divide the existing 4.7 acre site into 28 single-family residential lots, along with the extension of Gleam's Way to provide access to each of the lots. The residential lots have been designed to meet the minimum development standards for a single-family residential development. Each parcel meets the minimum width and there's currently no development proposed as part of the subdivision. However, if the subdivision is approved, single-family homes are permitted outright in the city, as well as duplexes. And if any other type of housing development is proposed outside of those uses, additional planning permits would be required. In terms of access, an extension of Gleam's Way is proposed, which would end in the cul-de-sac in the western portion of the proposed subdivision. The street extension has been designed to meet the city's standards for local street access and to provide sidewalks, landscape strips, curb and gutter, and a 30-foot wide street to accommodate on-street parking. A 20-foot wide access, emergency access lane is also provided right here on the screen between lots 2 and 3 to provide the required fire access for secondary access away from the property if there's an emergency. Finally, for utilities, there are currently utilities in River Road, and they're currently being built along Gleam's Way as part of the first phase of the subdivision. As part of the second phase was proposed, those utilities would be extended throughout Gleam's Way to provide utility service to the subdivision. The staff report does provide a detailed analysis of the required review criteria, as well as the recommended findings of how the proposed subdivision meets those requirements. And so with that, I will conclude my report and answer any questions you might have.
Kelly, that 20-foot access that you pointed out there, is that, you said, for secondary access for fire or emergency?
Yeah, so the fire department has a requirement that if there is a neighborhood or a development with more than 30 units, then there needs to be a second access point at least half the length of the development. And so because you're combining both of the subdivisions together to operate as one, the current proposed 2 street points don't meet that requirement for access. And so that 20-foot access way would provide that required vehicle access for emergency purposes for the fire department.
So the reason I asked, the location seems to be odd because it's only 2 lots away from the main access point.
Yep, that's where the fire code meets the reality of what's currently being built. The existing access point as it is constructed currently doesn't meet fire code, and so that's why that secondary point is being provided. It is only intended for emergency vehicle access. It would be bollard off by River Road, and so the only purpose for the use would be during an emergency.
So there would be no parking allowed?
No parking would be allowed on that access way.
Is there any other questions for staff? Hearing none, then we will open the public testimony portion and invite the applicant or the applicant's representative to come forward. State your name and your address, please.
Good evening, Lebanon Planning Commission. My name is Laura LaRocque, and joining me this evening is Brian Vendetta with Udell Engineering and Land Surveying. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, well, thank you very much. So I want to thank Kelly for putting together a really detailed staff report and providing such a thorough presentation. I really don't have too much to add. I think she did a great job covering the proposal and some of the details to it. I can speak to the fire code provision should you wish, but mostly here if you have any additional questions that I can answer. So Kelly, I think did a great job explaining the fire code provisions. So during the pre-application review stage, it was brought to our attention that there's two different fire code provisions that could apply to this particular development. The code states that under the Oregon Fire Code D107.1, that one or two family dwellings developments that have over 30 units must be provided two separate and approved fire apparatus access roads. Now, how that is measured is kind of unique and not super clear to me reading the development code, but it talks about that you take a measurement diagonal across the property, and whatever that half distance is, that is the minimum distance that the two access ways have to be separated. So what's curious on a site such as this, it's not a perfect rectangle. So the code doesn't, to me, clearly state where those diagonal points are taken. On this particular development, we went with the most restrictive and said from the furthest point to furthest point, it measures about 910 feet. So that would mean that the two access roads would have to be equal to or greater 455 feet. As proposed in the abutting residential development, that secondary access way is just shy of that. So we looked to the fire marshal to get some kind of interpretation for that code and some direction. We came up with a creative solution for emergency access that could also use as a pedestrian connection from that cul-de-sac into the abutting pathway there along River Road. If you have additional questions, I'm happy to answer those or any other questions that you might have about the subdivision.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. Brian, did you have anything to add?
Thanks, Don. No, I really didn't. I think Laura and Kelly have covered everything. I'd be available to answer any questions that might pertain to utilities or other engineering aspects as the hearing goes on.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to speak in favor of the application? Not seeing anybody that I don't recognize, probably not. Did we get any letters on this one, Kelly?
No, sir, no public comments or requests to participate in the meeting outside of the applicant.
Okay. Then I will go through the process, but anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Hearing none, then we will close the public testimony portion. All further discussion will be amongst commissioners and staff. Okay, commissioners, any concerns, any thoughts, anything you noticed in the application you want to question?
When I see a subdivision, I typically look at storm drainage and I see if they got to do something with Oregon DEQ and to get a permit. And so when I see a subdivision and a few houses possibly going up, you know, I always want to look out for the residents around and look at storm drainage. And it looks like they've obviously gone into that. So I don't really see anything wrong with it. It looks good to me.
Okay. Anybody else?
I do have a question.
Sure.
It mentions that the property is in a residential mixed density zoning district, but on our map, it's actually in the residential low density. Am I looking at that right or no?
I think you have an outdated map. As part of the 2018 permit, they processed a comprehensive map amendment as part of the original subdivision request for phase 1.
When did that?
So we can go in 2018.
Okay. That would be my issue then.
Sorry. We can get you an updated map if you would like.
Appreciate it, Kelly.
Shame on you, Josh. I've got the map tattooed on me.
Good for you, Samuel.
It's going to be a lot of uncomfortable updating.
All right, any other questions? Okay, I assume everybody has read through the criteria and the discussion. Does everybody feel that the criteria has been met and the application is worthy of approval? See heads nodding up and down again. Is anybody prepared to make a motion?
I can do it.
Okay,
I move that the Planning Commission approves the proposed subdivision application S-20-02 for the 28 lot subdivision, adopting the written findings contained in the staff report with the conditions of the development, and direct staff to draft an order of recommendation incorporating the findings and conditions of approval.
okay, do we have a second?
I will second it.
Okay, thank you, Todd. Any further questions? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, anybody opposed? Hearing none, and the motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to commission business and comments, turn it back over to Kelly.
So happy New Year to everybody. We're gearing up for another pretty busy year, it seems like. We're actively pursuing 5 different applications after we closed everything out last year. Subdivisions seem to be the new fad, so we have a couple of those currently being processed, and you'll get those in the next month or two. We will have a meeting next week for, I believe, 2 items. And we'll have some follow-up of some of the items that we discussed last month from the severe rent burden conversation, where we're starting the code changes and updates to accommodate the duplexes in single-family residential zones. So that will be coming to you in the next month or 2 as well. And if you guys have any questions, let me know.
I might have misunderstood, but I thought you said next week. You meant next month?
Next month or, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
It's been a long day, Dawn. Give me a break.
All right, any other comments from commissioners? Wow, short meeting tonight. All right, hearing none, we are adjourned.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.